It's the Wake Up America show, and we're broadcasting live from Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. Hope you appreciated that little mini documentary. You all unlocked that bonus content. Give yourselves a pat on the back. You hit the boo button instead of the applause button. Oops. No, we don't really have a studio audience. All right, well, a lot of times when I'm driving into work in the morning, I'm listening into content, trying to get some ideas, and I listen to about 4 or 5 different podcasts. And one of them is hosted by a gentleman by the name of Aaron Clarey, and he's got a company called Asshole Consulting. So you can imagine he's one of those most interesting men in the world types. Definitely a funny show that you want to watch as often as you can. I highly recommend him. He's joining us live right now for the very first time on the Wake Up America show to talk about why we can't have or enjoy beautiful women in this country anymore. Aaron Clarey, live from Las Vegas. How you doing, brother?
Good morning, Austin. Thanks for having me.
Aaron, appreciate you very much. You're definitely a big inspiration to myself for this show. I get a lot of good ideas from your content. I don't steal it. I just borrow it. Great, good ideas we borrow, great ideas we steal. I play video games, and when we were in the 90s, I used to play like Diablo, and they would have characters like the succubus with giant boobies and hot women all over the place. Duke Nukem, right? Shake that ass,
oh yeah,
baby. All that stuff. It was great. It was ideal to be a young man in the 90s to play video games. Now I turn it on, and it's kind of like, it's like they're trying to turn me off. They're trying to make me dislike the female characters that they're creating. Why can't we enjoy beautiful women anymore in this country, Aaron?
Well, 2 main reasons. One, I think the majority of the female population today, especially as you get younger, they are highly offended that men of male nature, that our primary interest in women is sexual and how they look, and that's objectification. And generations before, oh, don't you objectify us? Don't you? They are offended and insulted at a visceral level on that for reasons I don't fully understand. And consequently, because that's an increasing percent of the population, it starts to permeate into different institutions and the culture. So as you pointed out, what led me to kind of dive into this is how you just can't have pretty girls in video games anymore, where they seem to be doing it on purpose, and they are doing it on purpose. They're absolutely punishing you, but that's because a significant percent of the creatives, the video game developers, not to mention middle management and owners of these different studios, have that viewpoint, that kind of cultural, political viewpoint that women just they can't be pretty. And how dare you, men? I wish I was being edgy and facetious. I think I'm being 100% dead on. They find it despicable that you like pretty women. And these people, depending on the institution they're in, can make it that pretty women don't really make it to the forefront or in our media. So the main institutions these days where you'd normally see pretty girls, media, entertainment. So we can't have the Swedish bikini team, which is probably before your time. We can't have pinup girls. Cindy Crawford absolutely could not sell anywhere near the Pepsi she used to back in the late 80s. I'm sorry you guys missed it. And then now video games as well. You're not allowed to have girls with huge boobs and a scantily clad outfit.
Aaron, it seems as if the social justice warriors, DEI fanatics, leftists, communists, it appears as if they want to sexualize everything but beautiful women. They sexualize children at drag shows and at pride events. They sexualize men in dresses who say that they're women. They'll sexualize bull dyke lesbians, but they will not sexualize a beautiful woman. Why?
Because that's heteronormative. It's not edgy. My personal theory, what you just listed, is people who are not straight, and I wouldn't even say not straight. I would say they're straight and faking not straight because that's their political identity. That's their only identity. So it's the latest, edgiest. Go back 4 or 5 years ago. What was the latest Pokemon card of gender you could create and come up with? So that's what zany hair color. I wouldn't say that those are your main culprits or reasons we don't have pretty women. I think it's just your rank and file average gal in the United States today that's been, your feminist light types who, oh, how the male gaze, and oh, it's shameful, and you're shallow if you only like men. Now, that's not to say that the LGBTQ community, their activist wing, their activist component, aren't trying to do that. I also think there's, when you mentioned it, it's leftists. They're by nature jealous, petty, and vindictive. And there is a punishment aspect to it too. They do not want straight men enjoying video games. But primarily, I would say that it has now become almost a Victorian pearl clutching kind of thing. Oh my gosh, a scantily clad girl, heaven forbid. And I think that is the main reason that you're not seeing pretty girls in popular culture today.
Aaron, you're an economist, you're an author, you're a certified asshole, self-proclaimed.
Certified, yes, certified, yeah.
Certified asshole, self-proclaimed. So you'll have these kinds of conversations, which we appreciate on this show. I want to ask you a little bit about your research on dating websites. Your most recent video, you were talking a little bit about that site called Bumble, where a woman is supposed to make the first move. And now Bumble appears to want to be changing that formula that made them unique. You made this claim that dating sites are never going to be able to be profitable. My guess is because if you look at the data and the numbers of how women swipe versus men swipe, it would appear as if most women don't like most men. If I'm to be overgeneralizing, it appears that most women actually actively despise us men, and the dating app data appears to show that. Is that a fair assumption to make or not?
That's a very fair assumption. I mean, not obviously not all women hate men. That there's a range or a spectrum, but based online dating, especially the data that has come from it, has allowed people like me, economists, researchers, statisticians, to go and look and say, okay, what is female behavior? And if you remove, it's very hard for men to remove their sexual and romantic and emotional interest in women. But if you just look at the numbers, it's pretty plainly clear that women, better said, have a minor and very fractional interest in men that men do women. Women are just not that interested in men. And you can see that in dating apps where the whole business model of a dating app is, and I'm just calling it how it is, women are the product. Dates with women are the product. And the client, the customer, is men. Men are the ones who pay. Women are the ones that are ultimately the product. And you cannot have dating apps if there is no dating. And as you mentioned before, the number of dates that actually come from these dating apps is very few, and usually concentrated on what looks to be the top 5% of men on dating apps. So that's the primary reason these dating apps are failing. But in seeing these dating apps now for about 10 to 15 years, we're starting to get data that you could call it shocking or sad or tragic, but it is what it is. Women really just don't like men that much.
I think it's, yeah, most women don't like most men. Most men are interested in most women, but the reverse is not also true. So we see this playing out in the data from dating apps. I bring this up in conversation. My good friends, like the Council of AP for Liberty, got together this last weekend in DC, and we're all chatting about relationships. And I introduced this idea. I think I basically said that, looks are actually more important for women than they are for men, simply because, and everybody said, no, 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 no. And I think it's because they're kind of relying on old, outdated thinking from like 70s, 80s, or 90s before the internet existed. Because if you're not a good looking 8, 9, 10 kind of a male, you're just going to get swiped left on anymore. So looks have suddenly become extremely important for men, which is why I think we see in society more and more men are being much more fastidious. They're taking care of themselves much more. They're shaving more, right? But present company excluded, perhaps. But I mean, in order to be competitive as a man, women are sort of conditioning us to take on more feminist or female qualities as a man. And that's why you see these kind of like chiseled abs versus the old kind of like hairy dudes like our dads that used to get laid in the 1980s, drinking a beer and having a beer gut. It used to be no problem. Competition amongst men, it's now like if you're not in like the top, not even 10%, it's now like 5% of
Five.
men.
It's even, yes, below 5 even.
Yeah, talk to us on that.
Well, I don't know if it's men are. I'd say the male market is becoming more bifurcated. You either got it or you don't. And so if you look at data, I like to use obesity or overweight as a measure, because if you're overweight, you are not in the dating market, male or female. And it shows whether or not you're going to put the effort into meeting the requirements of the opposite sex. And right now, 70% of young people, roughly 18 to 35, are overweight. So for men, it's a choice. You can either go ahead and meet the requirements of women or not. And it's looking like an increasing percentage of men are not. They're choosing video games. They're not going to the gym. They're getting overweight, whatever, Adderall, pot. They're not going to living at home, all those kind of choices. And then there are the men who are choosing so. But because online dating and social media, this has warped women's expectations of men because they have an unlimited menu, digitally speaking. And so now, yes, looks become more important, critically so, because that's the first thing they assess about you. But then all these other ancillary requirements, height, what's your status mainly in terms of job, educational requirements. It's like applying for a job during a recession. And so you will see it on the internet, these men who really become into that top 4%, because that's, your eyes are going to gravitate to that. But for every one of those, is an increasing number of men who are just throwing in the towel and saying, forget it, this is not worth it. Or I don't make 200,000. I'm not 6 foot and I got to put food on the table. So a lot of men are instead focusing on basics, Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, clothing, shelter, their career, and then maybe sometime down the road pursue women. But especially now that the internet makes women's demands and interests very clear and well known, albeit skewed for some maybe theatrical effect, that's kind of diverging the men into a minor camp of, okay, I'll put in the effort to meet these increasing expectations of women, to an increasing percentage of the population, men are like, yeah, I can't get married. I have other things to do.
I say things like this to my friends, and they all look at me like I have 3 heads. And you come on here and you say him, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's so brilliant. He's an economist. He's so smart."
I wish they said, where are those people? I'd love to go meet those people. No, what it is, it's hard for men like women. They don't want to believe this. And I understand. I'm an economist. I don't have a soul. I can look at numbers and just tell it like it is. And that's predominantly why the past 3 books I've written, or 2 anyway, are very math intensive in statistics. Because back in the days when I had to argue politics or whether there was a housing bubble, I didn't want to argue with people on how they felt. I'm like, here's your data, here's your numbers, take it or leave it. And most people left it because humans are emotional creatures. And it's the same thing you're running into there. If you got one of my books and you showed them the data, it would maybe force them to be a bit more empirical. But yeah, men, and I'm not even begrudging these guys. They're humans. They don't want to believe it, but y'all better start believing it, because it's real, at least based on the numbers I got.
Yeah, one of the more controversial takes that I've had lately that gets me lots of boos amongst my friends and friend group, and whenever I say this amongst people that, in polite conversation, we talk about gender issues, is that we essentially have de facto polygamy here in the American society. And women don't like it when I say this, so you got to be careful what you say around them, because they'll immediately start the shame tactics, right? Shame,
Oh
shame,
no,
shame.
not the shame tale. Oh
When you
no.
say,
Okay.
yes, you're an incel, right? When you say things like this, but we essentially have polygamy. Women would rather share an alpha male than be monogamous with a beta, right? So women would rather have knowing that there's a harem, they would rather have that 8, 9, 10 male, the Christian Grey, if you will, than to settle for an average man and be monogamous with him. Is that a controversial take from your data? I mean,
No, that is the data. That is a fact. I honestly learned long ago to stop listening to what women say or care or feel. I don't have time for that shit. I don't have time to listen to economists or politicians lie to me about what's happening in the economy. That is exactly what is happening. What would help, not just you and your conversations with your friends, but anyone listening, is, regardless, male, female, doesn't matter. Stop listening to what people say and look at what they do. And with the advent of the internet, we have a tremendous amount of data that shows what people are doing. Girls will complain until the day we all die and the sun goes super giant and consumes the earth. What is their behavior? The behavior is they are time sharing top tier men. They are making accommodations for men. They will not always, but they won't like it, but they will accept and try to outcompete the other women that a man is sleeping with. Yes, there's still people who get in monogamous relationships, but that is the current day economy we have now. It's kind of like an oligopoly. You have a top few companies that can, have the majority of the dating market, and women, they might complain, but at the end of their day, they're still going out with these guys. And so that is a reality, that is a fact, and I would not obfuscate the analysis listening to what people think about it.
Good stuff. Good morning for all those who are tuning in live right now to the Wake Up America show. Between all the platforms, looks like we've got around 1,500 people or so watching us live. Welcome. I imagine that for many of you who are tuning in, this might be the very first time that you're watching the show. So please do click like and follow us on whichever platform that you're watching us on so that you can come back and join us. This show is live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. And we have great conversations with great guests like Aaron Clarey, who's joining me live right now. I watch his YouTube videos quite frequently. Highly recommend them. He's an author and a consultant, as well as an economist, talking a little bit about the dating game and the war of the sexes. Getting towards the end of this conversation, I was curious your thoughts. We were talking about Pearl Davis, who's quite controversial these days, quite popular. She's in a battle with many of what we call tradcons. This is a term for people who are very, very online, Aaron, but essentially traditional conservatives, specifically women. So Pearl is kind of calling these traditional conservative women out, saying that they're LARPing. Essentially, that's live action role playing. Again, I'm using a lot of terminology, big words here, but follow along for those who are listening. So she's calling out this, Beth Stucky over at The Blaze, right? Very strong conservative Christian woman, hosts a show, saying that whenever that they may be anti-feminists in their content, right? They talk about the perils of left feminism. But essentially what Pearl is attacking them on is this Steven Crowder thing, suggesting that there is no such thing as a conservative woman when it comes to divorce court, for example, right? Just like there are no feminists in house fires. A lot of these traditional conservative women do appear to be play acting anti-feminists, but when the day comes that they might get true equality or actually be treated like a woman instead of being gifted with the privileges of being a man, they all out themselves for being the true postmodern feminists that they are. Have you been following this conflict, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, a little bit from maybe a slightly different angle. I can't really find much fault with whatever Daily Wire, the Tradcons, Dennis Prager, and all these people, because I agree with them with 99% of the political stuff that they say. The main issue that me and other people like Pearl or people in the red pill community would have with them is they got a big gaping flank where they're like, oh, well, let's just all get married and have children, which sure, that sounds great on paper. But the risks of divorce, as evidenced by Crowder and Prager's on his third wife. A lot of guys are like, whoa, hang on. And it'd be one thing if the cost of divorce was, well, it's $20 and you had your hand at blackjack and you lost your $20. You were losing your life. You're losing a lot of times your children. And so because there's such huge and tremendous risks, we come from it from a more secular and risk actuary type of thing. Like, whoa, wait a minute. But it'd be blunt, as Pro would recommend or say, marriage is obsolete. It's a non-starter now for most men. And so I think a lot of those people, I don't think they're LARPing in some regards, and that they're mostly predominantly Christian, and they are being intellectually honest and following the religion. Like, yes, you should get married, families, and all that.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment, Aaron?
Sure.
Because I'd like to introduce another concept here. When you say we agree with him on 99% of things. I agree with you as well. But on this issue, when we're talking about marriage and dating, these are people who get married at like 19 and 20 years old. These are people who that, maybe they've been out of the dating game for like 10 or 15 years. The dynamics have completely changed here. So they're a bit oblivious when they're giving people, dating advice about what to deal with in this modern context. And it just seems like people like Michael Knowles and others, again, respect their political views, but they're like, oh, well, just go get married. Just jump in the Shark Tank, right? Just go ahead and go through it, right? But they're oblivious to the actual challenges that people who are unmarried, who are trying to have a relationship, actually have to go through, right?
Well, and Dave Ramsey I use as an example. I think I'm speculating, but it sounds like he's got a great wife. He's been married forever. And yeah, to these people, you got family, you got kids, you got a wife, you got a spouse that you love. Yeah, they don't say, well, what's the problem? It's like, okay, not everyone came out with the Leave It to Beaver family, it's their experiences colored, and you are right. A lot of these people did get married early on, and so they lack the they have the horse blinders on, that they can't see existential risks to marriages general. But I still, I don't find necessarily malice. Some people I do think they're being intellectually dishonest, and there's a bit of theater and LARPing going on. I think Matt Walsh, in particular, not to pick on him, but someone paid me to do a review. I don't think he's being intellectually honest. I think he's fully aware some of this is to get clicks. I would say Michael Knowles actually is intellectually dishonest. I think he also does it for clicks and traffic. But aside from those two, unless I've reviewed other people, I think most people are coming from a religious angle. And yes, a lot of them did get married. And yes, a lot of them are naive to the secular or real world about marriage. And I'm glad we can have this conversation. But at the end of the day, I don't care, because I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor. Dude, everyone was getting divorced left and right. Frankly, God is not going to save you. And I don't care how Christian your wife is. She will get divorced. She, not a guarantee, but at no rates any less than the secular kind of world. So that's the point of contention that we have with the tradcons, as it were, and whether they're LARPing or whether they sincerely are a true believer. At the end of the day, it's moot. Especially young men need to be warned about the risks of marriage.
God may forgive you, but your wife won't. Aaron Clarey, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today, sir?
If you really want to see it, I'm not just blowing smoke, I would recommend people get my book, The Book of Numbers, Analyzing the ROI in the Pursuit of Women. There I measure and present the numbers and statistics that reflect women's interest in men, and other such things that would make the case here numerically on what I'm trying to do. And then otherwise, yeah, if you just want to find my main website, you can go to assholeconsulting.com if you had questions about literally anything. Which you can also, the companion site is my YouTube channel to Asshole Consulting. Just search Aaron Clarey. You'll find me there.
Aaron, you're doing good work, sir. I'll have to check out those books. I definitely enjoy your content. I'll keep watching it. This was a great conversation. I hope you'll come back and join us again sometime. Thanks for getting up so early and being so generous with your time, sir. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Austin. I appreciate it.